Well, join me today while we make some hummus and pita bread for the dolls in the dollhouse. All right, so we are starting out with some well-conditioned clay. The first step in making our project today is to make the bowl that we're going to put the hummus in. For that, I've got some of my pre-mixed 1 part white to 1 part translucent clay. And like I've told you guys about this a lot of times in the past, what I do when I start to run low is I go buy a package of white clay and a package of translucent clay, whatever brand is on sale. And I mix pretty much the whole package of each together. I keep it in a Ziploc bag in my clay stash. And then I've got this, because I use that much. So we're going to roll out just a little bit of it. I'm not going to use anywhere near all this. Most of it's going to go back in my clay bag. But we are going, and what I've done is I've laid just some craft sticks. Oops. My marble's making a sneak appearance and rolling off the table. So we'll start with a different one. So I've rolled this out using a couple of craft sticks just so I get a nice even surface. You could go a little thinner if you want. In fact, a little thinner will look more in scale, but will be more brittle and more apt to break. So I'm going to go a little thicker than scale just so that I can have a bowl that I know is going to be durable. I've got the smallest clay cutter I've got on hand, and it's about 3/4 of an inch in diameter. This is going to be kind of a big bowl of hummus, kind of like you'd serve at a party. I'm just going to cut that out, put the rest of this into its back in its bag. You can see I'm almost out. I'm going to have to make more soon. And I mixed that not that long ago. So I'm going to use my clay knife, and I've got something on my tray. All right, that's loose. Now, since that marble ran away, we'll use the other one I've got out. Now I've got just a regular marble. This one came from Dollar Tree. It's one of the ones that's over there to use in vases. It's a little bigger than a 1/2 inch in diameter. Any glass marble will do. Just make sure it's glass and not plastic. And we're going to form our clay over our marble. You don't have to put any cornstarch or anything on. The marble is going to pop out just fine. Now, the hardest part of this whole process is to make sure that clay is pretty straight and that you are balancing it so that it's got a nice level looking bowl. So kind of look at it from the side, which I know you can't see on camera. Kind of leaning back here looking, yep, that looks like a nice level bowl. I'm going to press it down on my work surface. That way I end up with a flat bottom. That way my bowl, when it's done, is going to sit flat on a table. Make however many you want to make. This would be a good time. Make a bunch if you want to, so you've got them on hand for future projects. This is going to be baked at the recommended temperature for your clay for a full 10 minutes, and then it needs to cool down pretty well before you go to the next step. So I'll be back when this is cooled. All right, now for this step, this does need to be slightly warm, just barely warm, and then use your fingers and pop it out. If it's not a little bit warm, it's going to hold on and you're liable to break your bowls. So that's one of the reasons I recommend making extras. And also, you've got them then. I mean, it's silly to turn the oven on for one. So now we've got, the edge needs a little work. It's not perfect. So I've just got some fine sandpaper. This happens to be 220. What sandpaper you use is not super important on this. We just want to put this upside down on the sandpaper. And kind of use a circular motion until you've got a nice flat edge. And that makes a huge difference. So I'm going to let this cool all the way to room temperature because I don't want to have any issues with what I'm going to put into it reacting to any residual heat. But I do want to show you one thing here, kind of a sneak peek forward at something we're going to talk about on the Clay 101 series at some point. I'm not sure when that video will go up, but if you look inside the bowl, I'm not sure the camera's picking up, but because it baked on this glass marble, the inside is very shiny where the outside is matte. So that's something to kind of look at. You can see that, something we're going to talk about on that series later on. So I'm going to let this cool and I'll be back and we'll put some hummus in here. All right, so unfortunately I forgot to buy hummus at the grocery store, so we don't have any in person. I actually didn't completely decide I was going to do this till after I was on my way home from the grocery store yesterday. And yeah, this is the next day from when I did those bowls. So I'm going to treat making hummus like I would creating mashed potatoes. And I've got a tutorial on that on the channel. It's in the foods playlist. I'll try and remember to put the food playlist at the end of this video. So what I've got here, so we need to pre-bake a chunk of clay, and I'm using Sculpey 3 in beige. What I did was I pulled up a really good photo of hummus. I actually went to the Sabra hummus website and pulled up their photo that they're using to sell their classic hummus, and I color matched as best I could. And I know my phone, the color is not going to be perfect. If you have hummus in person, that would help you to get a better, more accurate color, but I think I'm going to get pretty close. So I'm starting with this. I've made this shape because I need to be able to grate it. So I'm going to bake this, and it's going to need to bake for probably about 20-25 minutes to be safe, because this is pretty thick and we need to bake it all. We need to cure this all the way through. So when this is baked and cooled enough I can handle it, we'll come back and we'll go to the next step. All right, this is baked and mostly cooled, and what I've done, I've covered my work surface with a piece of printer paper to catch this, because I'm going to use this. This is one of those things that you can get in a pedicure set at the dollar store to shave the dead skin off your heel. Well, I use it to grate clay with. You could also use like a nutmeg grinder, and this is why I made this kind of protect my fingers a little bit. You want really fine clay, and yeah, the camera's picking that up. And it's going to take me a few minutes because I need to make enough to fill the bowl. So rather than make you watch me do this, I am going to turn the camera off. I'm going to sit here and work on this for a while, and when I get a nice big pile of it, because I'm going to do one of these on camera, and I'm going to film a second idea I've got, and if it works, I'll show it to you. So let me go grate a bunch of this, and then I'll be back. All right, I've grated quite a pile of it. I moved it to a little plastic container, and I've still got quite a bit left, but I've got more than I need for this little bowl. So now we're going to mix some TLS with this, but first I want to tint my TLS because TLS is translucent, and we need to have a little bit of color in it in order for it to work. So I'm going to put some TLS out here on my just a piece of aluminum foil. I probably don't need that much, but I want to mix enough. And I've got just a toothpick. I played around with a little bit of just plain TLS with that. It was just not enough color. It was too translucent. So I've got oil paint here. You've seen me color TLS with oil paint before. Don't use acrylic paint to do this. Use oil paint. And I just want to make kind of a cream color, just a really pale creamy color. I don't want this to be stark white because I don't want to lighten it that much. I want just a little bit of this into my TLS. Off camera, I'm going to try and measure out enough of this into here, but I'm going to do it over my piece of paper that I've got off to the side. That way I hopefully won't make a mess. And if I do, I can pour it back in my container. I'm making enough that it's kind of, I'll show you, it's kind of mounding up in my bowl. There. So I've got plenty to fill the bowl. I'm going to put that over here on my foil. And I'm going to bring in my tinted TLS. Let's get those oil paints out of my way. And I don't know if I mentioned, it's yellow ochre and titanium white are the colors I use there. We're just going to mix it in, and we want it to be a consistency. Well, it's going to be kind of like the consistency of hummus by the time we're done. And I may need a little more of the powder. This is just a guess. I want it a little thinner than that. Oh, between the two of them, if this remains this exact color that it is now, it's perfect. Okay, let's move our bowl over. And I think to make it easier to work, I'm going to try to anchor my bowl. So I've got some masking tape here. Yeah, making sure I'm making this one's sticky side up. These two on the ends are going to be sticky side down. It won't hold it super well, but it will give it, it'll anchor my bowl a little bit. I want just a little more of that TLS mixture in there. It's still pretty thick. And I think I'm actually going to take just a little bit of clay and fill the bottom. Put just a little bit of TLS in the bottom. That way, I don't have to make quite as much. Fill the bowl up a little bit with this. That way, I don't have to use quite so much TLS to make this. Now, when I put this in, and you can get as fancy as you want with how you finish the top of this. I've been working on a way to make things like syrup and the olive oil that I'm going to put on the top of this. So we're going to play with that here in a little bit. And it is sticky, so it's going to try and fight with you, but it is worth playing with because this makes the best looking items of this kind of texture. I'm going to get a clean toothpick because that one's already very sticky. I'm trying to bring it over to the sides of the bowl so it looks nice and full. Let's see if I can use one of my dotting tools that I just bought. And work around. All right, I'm going to transfer this to my baking plate. I'm going to bake it at the recommended temperature for 10 minutes, and when it's baked and cooled, we'll come back and we'll probably add a little bit of a finish to the top of our hummus, and then we'll add some olive oil. So we'll be back in just a second. All right, here is our bowl of hummus all baked and cooled. It looks great. We are going to put a light coat of satin Mod Podge on the top of it, just to protect it from the last thing we're going to do, and also to give the top of our hummus just a slight glisten, because hummus is not a matte finish on it. It'll look more realistic if it has just that light satiny look. And remember, when you're using Mod Podge directly on the clay, very light coat. Very, very light coat. All right, I'm going to let that dry. And when that's dry, we'll come back and we will create some olive oil. All right, so our Mod Podge has dried. So now we're going to create our olive oil. And I've been trying to, because back in the day when I was doing videos before, I would have just pulled out the gallery glass or something similar to it, a glass paint, because those are translucent and they worked really well. They are getting harder and harder and harder to find. A lot of the different ones that I used to buy are no longer being made, and so I decided I needed to come up with something. And I've tried, over the last several weeks, I have tried several different things, and this is what has come out to work the best for me anyway. So what I've got here, I've got 3 Bic markers. You could use any alcohol marker, and this first step, I'm going to say, if you have alcohol inks that are in the right colors, you can skip this. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these markers with some isopropyl alcohol and make an alcohol ink. Then I'm going to color gloss Mod Podge. So one of the things that is wonderful about alcohol markers, and you can use Sharpies, you could use Copics, you could use Markets, you could use Spectrum Noir markers. I actually have a huge collection of Spectrum Noir markers, but I typically use these on camera simply because they're a little more affordable and more people probably can get a hold of them. So that's the yellow, and I'm going to try this green. What is this green called? This is Key Lime. This yellow one is just Yellow Blaze. A little green. I want a little bit of this darker green, and this one is just Meadow Green. Now I'm going to get a couple of toothpicks, which I should have reached earlier. Now in this little dropper bottle, I don't remember what the percentage is, but it's isopropyl alcohol from the first aid aisle at the store. Just drop some of that on there and mix it. And what that's going to do is create basically alcohol ink. Now you do have to work quickly with this because the alcohol that I just put out is going to evaporate really quickly. Now I've got gloss Mod Podge, and it is a little difficult to get the Mod Podge and the alcohol ink to combine. They don't like to. It's kind of like mixing oil and water in a way. And it gets a little stringy, which is kind of weird. So I am going to and that loud crash you probably just heard on the video was actually the garbage truck picking up a dumpster. And there we go. So I'm going to let that dry. When it dries, I'll come back and we will look at our finished hummus, and then we'll make some bread to go with it. All right, the Mod Podge has dried, and now we have this beautiful olive oil on top of our bowl of hummus. And you could adjust the color to match whatever your olive oil looks like. Some of them are a little more green, some are more yellow. So let's make something to serve with our hummus. All right, so now we're going to do a little bit of a bonus method of how to do this. I've got some more of that grated clay, and I've got my other little bowl in the on the masking tape, and I just showed you when I was doing the other one. So now I've got some matte Mod Podge. I'm going to take some matte Mod Podge. I'm going to take just a little bit of vanilla cream acrylic paint, because just like our TLS, Mod Podge is going to turn clear, which for some applications is really good. For others, not so much. And let's see if that's the color I want. I want just a drip of a yellow ochre type color. This one is, what is this called? This is called Golden Sunset. I want to warm this up just a bit. It will be harder to judge our final color because this is going to translucent up even more than our TLS mixture did. I think I'm just going to take all the rest of this, because that did shrink quite a bit when we did it with the TLS. Getting this wet makes it shrink. Let's add a little more Mod Podge now that we've already got the paint in there. Should be fine. So I'm recording this, so assuming you're seeing it, it must have worked. A little more of the yellow ochre type color in than I really wanted. The advantage to this, there's a couple of advantages both ways. Number one, I can adjust the color more readily here. I can see that's already way too yellow. That's a much better color. With the TLS, I can't really add more oil paint. You can use just a tiniest bit. So that is nice. This doesn't need to be baked. Most of us have Mod Podge, even if we don't have TLS. I'm not sure. I'm probably going to have to come back as this starts to dry to make a design in the top. So I'm going to let this set up. I'll come back every 5 or 10 minutes probably and add try and add a swirl to the top as it sets up. I'm not sure how long this is going to take to dry. So when it's dry, we will come back and take a look at this one. All right, here is our hummus made with just Mod Podge and no TLS in it. I think it turned out fine. If you don't have TLS, that is an option. It took a long time to dry. I did make some of the olive oil mixture up to go on top, but it's still wet, as you can tell, because it's still somewhat opaque. I will try to remember to put side-by-side photos of the two of them together on the Facebook page once this is all the way dried and that goes clear. I prefer this one. I think it looks nicer. I think the texture's better, but if you don't have TLS and can't get it, this would be an option for you. So that, I hope that little experiment helps you out. All right, now that our hummus is done, let's make some Greek pita bread to serve with it. And I'm just using some original Sculpey because we're not going to get a lot of detail. We don't need a lot of detail in this project. I will show you how to detail the sides a little bit, but for the most part, I'm going to set this up the way I would serve it in my home, the way that my kids always liked it, because this was a favorite snack, especially of my daughter. I think she probably ate tons of hummus and pita bread growing up. And this was her preference for how when I served it, this is how she always wanted it. So that would be the pitas just whole. She preferred to break them up to the size she wanted as she went. So that's how we're going to serve it to the doll family. And what I'm doing is I'm rolling out my clay to approximately a 1/4 inch or so in diameter. I'm going to cut it into, and this, I get asked about this ruler quite a bit. This is an Omnigrid, which is a brand of quilting ruler. They're used with your rotary cutter when you're doing quilts. You can get them in fabric stores. Kind of expensive. Look for them on sale. You might find one at Dollar Tree from time to time because they do have the cutting mats there. And they even have a rotary cutter at Dollar Tree. Never tried it. Should try it someday. I love this because it's got the grid. When I moved, I lost that long ruler I used to use that was clear. And I decided since I have all my quilting rulers, as long as I clean the clay off, I can use those just fine. So I'm cutting this into 1/4 inch segments. And this particular one is divided, whoops, that's a little more, that's fine. It's divided into actually 1/16 of an inch, which is really nice. Not all of them go down that small. Most of them that I have only go to 1/8 of an inch. But I like, because one of the features of these, since they're made to use with light or dark fabrics, is all your lines are in black, and then your major ones, the 1/8, 1/4, 1/2, and inch, are all highlighted in yellow. So you can see the lines pretty much on any color if you're laying it on top of something that you need to cut. All right, put that off to the side, and I will clean it with a wet wipe or a paper towel, soap and water when I'm done. Okay, now I'm going to roll all these into balls. A funny story, kind of. I tried to get a picture for the blog, and I couldn't. You know how I'm always telling you guys, wipe down everything that might be plastic that you get polymer clay on. I didn't realize I had liquid polymer clay on my fingers when I closed the preview window on my video camera a while back. And I went to clean my camera off a couple of days ago, and I couldn't figure out what is that kind of stickiness on the side of my camera. And as I cleaned it off, it was liquid polymer clay, and there is the shiny finish is gone in that area, and it's got this little kind of pitted, not really visible. It looks just like a dull spot, but when you run your finger over it, it's definitely eaten into the plastic on the outside of my camera. So be careful. I didn't even think about wiping the side of my camera off. So it's a good reminder to all of us. All right, those are all in balls. I'm going to put them directly onto my paper plate. And I apologize, we're doing a lot of white on white here, but that's kind of what this is going to require. So I'm going to start. I'm going to try. I can't mark this way, so I'm going to start by just pressing them down a little bit. I'm not going to the final thickness. Just getting them pressed out. Your fingertip will give some texture. And the paper plate will also give an okay texture on the bottom. Mine will be, if I make a display out of this, I'll glue mine together so you'll never see the bottoms. Now I have a piece of Velcro. It's at the rough side of side. This is the soft side of a piece of Velcro. I played around with quite a few different things to get my top texture this morning. And if you really wanted to have these textured nicely on both sides, you could put a piece down on your table, on your surface, and just work against it, but I'm not going to bother. Because like I said, mine will be most likely displayed, move this one over just a little bit, displayed, fastened down eventually. I think I'm probably wandering off camera, but I want to get all of them textured because it just takes a second. Now, we have a very subtle texture on the top of our pita bread. This can go in my drawer of texturing things and be there for next time I need it. Now I have my chalk, my artist chalks, which I use. You've seen me use these a lot. I'm using actually 3 colors, although it only looks like 2. This one is actually this yellow ochre and this white. Oops, this yellow ochre and this white, and I mixed them together because I wanted it lighter. Because typically Greek pita bread is a very pale colored bread. And then this one is, it's one of these two, and I forget which one I did. I think it's this one. So we are going to take my usual, this is an eyeshadow brush from the dollar store. I like eyeshadow brushes for the most part for doing chalk because they're designed to work with a dry medium, with a powder. But for effect, we are going to use a different kind of brush for the darker color. And your goal is not to cover the whole top here. That's why I'm kind of knocking off some of my chalk. And I do have a photo up on my laptop next to me of actually from a recipe for Greek pita bread. When you're looking for photos of some foods like bread or the hummus, 2 really good spots to look. I look on Google Photos, but I also go to a lot of the recipe blogs and the manufacturers' websites. Like the hummus, I had the hummus manufacturer's website photo for their sale photo, you know, what they were trying to sell their stuff with. Now this is a very, very tiny paintbrush. I don't know what this is. It's not marked in any way. I think it came in a batch from the dollar store. I'm not sure, but that's because I just want just little tiny amounts. I'm just going to kind of, oops, you were not supposed to move. But typically these breads are very pale. Before we put the brown on one of them, let's go ahead and cut one in half. Now if you wanted to, that did not cut in half. If you wanted to cut these down into wedges, you could. I'm not going to today, like I said, but if you wanted to, you could. And I'll show you how to deal with that. Take your dental pick, and we've done this before, and just kind of tease it. If you want it to look more like it's got a pocket, use a very thin knife blade and carefully make a slit in the center and then texture around it. There. All right. I'll do a couple more of these on camera and then I will finish up. Don't get chalk into that cut area. If you do cut them, don't put chalk on that part. So I'll do one more on camera, then I will go ahead and chalk the rest of these. I'm going to bake them for probably 10 minutes. I bake most things for 10 minutes if it's the final baking. Get these baked and cooled, and then we'll come back, we'll put them on a display, and we'll see how they look. All right, I've brought you down a little bit closer. I can only get so close with this video camera and then it won't focus anymore. But I love how these came out. So let's set up a little board for the dolls to serve their hummus and pita bread on. I haven't decided if I'm going to glue these down permanently or not. I might. I really like how this turned out. Kind of set it up like I would have for the kids to snack on when they were growing up, because like I said earlier, this is one of my daughter's favorite snacks, and this is, she always got mad when I cut up the pita bread because I never cut it the way she wanted it. She liked to tear it. So I will make sure there is a good close-up photo of this on the blog post, but I love how this turned out. I hope you enjoyed it too. If you did, hit the like button. Leave me a comment. What kinds of foods would you like to see and learn how to make? If you enjoy my content and haven't subscribed, I encourage you, hit the subscription button and the notification bell so you know when I put up a new video. Thank you very, very much for watching today, and I will talk to you later. Bye.